All right, we're going to get started. It's 10 a.m., okay? So hopefully you guys all know what this machine is. But I want to talk about tomorrow and next week real quick, okay? So we're going to go over here to share. I'm sharing, okay? So one of the things I want you guys to make sure and do each day, and usually Monday should be good. I should know if something weird's going on by Monday, but if for some reason something odd is going on, check the announcements, okay? So for example, I put this one up this morning, Tuesday, November 24th, which is tomorrow. I want you guys to log in to Big Blue Button instead of Zoom, okay? And that's over here at the conferences link. Now, I should double check and make sure that you guys can see that. Yes, you can. Okay, good. Now, how do I get this go back to full screen? Seriously? Jeez. Oh, there it is. Okay. So never mind. I'm doofus. So when we go to modules here, where's my week 2? What the? Oh, it's not showing yet. Okay, when we go to modules, why isn't it showing? There's Matt Grissom. Hold on, let me get him in. Maybe because I don't have it showing yet. There you go. Okay, so today, man, I thought today was going really well. We're gonna go over the planer and the drum sander. Here's a copy of the major tool ID sheet and a copy of the safety test, because we're gonna go over a couple of questions on the safety test, and those will be what the quiz is on Wednesday. I hope we can get the table saw tomorrow too, and a review on Wednesday so we can knock all that out at once. But what I want you guys to be aware of is that tomorrow, log into Big Blue Button. In other words, go to conferences, and here it is. When I started the beginning class, this should be a clickable link for you guys, okay? So it's just a dry run, because I don't know what the sub wants to use when he's here next week, whether he wants to use Big Blue Button or discussions. And I'll probably do a little discussions test tomorrow too, so you guys know how to do that, okay? But my guess is he'll probably just use Big Blue Button, okay? So, I mean, there you go. Okay, so yeah, so remember, tomorrow go to conferences, not Big Blue Button, all right? I mean, not Zoom. If you go to Zoom and you ever get let in, think about it, okay? So back to modules, this is what we're doing today, tomorrow, and then, so that's practicing with Big Blue Button, and then Wednesday is table saw, and just a short little 5-question quiz. You guys should know by now that the quizzes I give you, are all based on the safety test, or later on in the semester or quarter, it might be based on a video or something like that, but they are very, very simple and straightforward. For example, this table saw quiz, there might be a question in there. I haven't made it yet, so that's why I'm saying might. There might be a question or two in there on planer or drum sander, but the answers can always be found if you're unsure, either by asking me while you're taking it, okay, or in the modules, right? I'm going to put a copy of this. The day we take the quiz on Wednesday, I'll make sure there's a copy of this, the major tool ID sheet as well, because the answers will be directly found in there as well, okay? So we're going to stop this share, and we're going to talk a little bit about the planer. I'm going to take a look in the safety test right now and see what questions there are on the safety test that directly relate to the planer. Obviously, there's a lot of other questions that somewhat relate to it. For example, the very first question is true or false. It's your responsibility to make sure each machine is adjusted properly before you use it. That applies to the planer and the drum sander, but it's not a direct application for that specific machine, okay? So let me take a look through here. This is cross-cutting. Number 7 is true or false. It's okay to run sheet goods through the planer. That would be false. Hold on, I got a couple lates coming in. Let's see if we can get them in. Zeph and Ryder. Okay, so that is false. You do not run sheet goods through the planer. Actually, let's do this. Yeah, let's do this, so you guys can see what I'm looking at. Okay, so That was this one right here, true or false. It's okay to run secrets planar. That's false. Okay, we're going to run down a little bit and see what else we have. Is this back in the bandsaw? There's a table saw. Okay, what is the minimum thickness that can be run through a drum sander? I believe it's 1/4 inch. Okay, what is the maximum depth of cut with each pass on the drum sander? Now I'm going to refer to the machine tool ID sheet here to make sure, because I think I'm going to change that, and I want to make you guys aware of it. As far as this packet is concerned, it's 0.015 inches or 15,000ths of an inch. So that would be written 0.015 inches. Okay, I'm sorry, this one right here, the depth of cut with each pass. I'm probably going to change it to 0.010, but I'm not going to hold it to you right now. So when we finally get back here and get to work in the shop, I'm going to change that because it just makes life so much easier changing it 10,000ths at a time than 15,000ths. Okay, so we won't worry about that question too much. Let's see here. What two machines are the best choice to thickness a board? It's going to be planer and drum sander. What machine is the best choice to quickly and efficiently remove large amounts of material from the face of a board? The planer. And then the machine that removes small amounts of material from the face of a board is the drum sander. I think there's another one in here. What three pieces of equipment cannot be used for sheet goods? That is joiner, planer, and drum sander. I think there's another one in here. The maximum amount of material that should be removed with each pass on the planer is 0.125, which is the same as 1/8 of an inch. You can write 1/8 of an inch if you want to, no big deal. But 0.125, 125,000ths of an inch. There it is. There's the answer right there. Okay, so that's kind of the kind of questions I don't think, but there's going to be maybe one question on this. And there's a question that I don't believe I have in here that I really want to put in here at some point before you guys come back. And that's going to be, what is the minimum length your board must be to run it through the planer or the drum sander? And it's going to be 14 inches. Okay, I know we have 12 inches on the table saw and the joiner and stuff, and the planer and the drum sander used to be 12 inches, but these machines are a little different, and we're going to have to change it to 14 inches long as the minimum length. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about the planer. I've done something here that I hope you like. I think it's pretty cool. I've mounted the camera to the cart, so now I can walk around the shop. How sweet is that? That's pretty slick. That's damn good for an old guy, right? Okay, so we can walk around a little bit. Just the basic structure of the planer. Okay, so what you're looking at here is this. These are 3 different shafts. There's one here, and one here. Okay, these are chain driven, and the center one's belt driven. Okay, this front shaft here is what's called the feed roller or the pinch roller. Okay, this is what's going to grab your material and feed it through the blades. All right, feeds it at a consistent rate. We can change that speed. There's a lever down here on the front that we can alter that speed. We pretty much keep it the same. The next big one in here, this is the actual cutter head. Each one of these little squares in here is an individual solid carbide knife. There are 154 individual knives in this. And let me tell you, man, it takes a while to rotate each of those knives. It's a couple-hour project, but I try to do it every school year. And if we have a nick in one, I'll go ahead and rotate a single knife. Okay. And then the back shaft back here is another feed roller. This is what feeds it out of the machine. Okay, so it's auto feed. You guys know that. You've used it before. All right. So that's the guts. Okay. Now, one of the things, well, I'm going to get into that in a second here. So when you come up to the planer, there's a couple things you're going to need to do. Okay. The first thing you'll need to do is to measure the thickness of your board. Okay. We keep a digital caliper sitting right here on the top of the planer. Turn it on and close it all the way. And if it doesn't go to 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, just hit this little 0 button. It'll clear it. We're going to take this and we're going to measure it at a couple different places. I have 0.96, 0.95, 0.95, 0.95. So we're going to call this 0.9. We'll just go ahead and we're going to call it 0.96. We'll use the thicker one. Okay. So 0.960 is our current thickness of the board, okay? Now, we can only take off 1/8 of an inch per pass, okay? So the easiest way to do it, and 1/8 of an inch is 0.125. So honestly, the easiest way to do it is just go 0.100, take 100 off. So if I'm currently, if I'm at 0.96, I'm gonna go 0.86, okay? That's a little less than 1/8 of an inch, all right? So it takes some practice and some using this to remember how to do it, okay? But basically, it's, first of all, if that little red switch isn't popped out, it won't do anything. Trust me, I've done that several times. Okay, so I want to go to 0.860. So I'm going to hit program, 0.860. You have to use the decimal. This little guy is like an enter key on a keyboard. Enter, and then you'll see this light flashing on the start button. And it's going to automatically go to 0.860. It may take it a second, wait till it stops, okay? Now, if you're ever doing this and you mess up and an error message comes up that says ERR or error, okay? If it ever does that, on the back of the machine, back here, there's a big red handle disconnect. It's just a gigantic on-off switch. Turn it off, turn it back on, okay? That'll clear this and you can start over again. So we've got it set to the right depth. I'm gonna turn dust collection on, okay? It has to have dust collection on. You can do it, but it makes a holy mess. And this is gonna get kind of loud, I think. Okay, so what I have here is a board that's had one face jointed. Let me see if you guys can see this on the screen. Yeah, it's had one face jointed. That's the surface that goes down, jointed face down. You'll notice I have pencil marks on every single surface, okay? So I started with this board with pencil marks covering every surface. When I jointed it, I took the pencil marks off that surface, so that's going to go down. There's no point in treating that surface again. Remember, on the joiner, the cutter head's below. On the planer, the cutter head's above. So jointed surface down. Main motor. Okay. I want to make another cut. I'm just going to take 100 off. So I'm going to go to 760. Program, 0.760, enter, start. Okay, I'm going to turn this off so you guys can hear. So a couple things I want to make a note of about the planer for you guys, okay? When you're using the planer, don't always feed your board at the same spot on the planer every time. Move it around so we're not dulling just a specific area of knives. It uses all the knives at some point in time. So if you're making multiple passes, once in here, 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 vary where you enter it into the machine or feed it into the machine. Next thing about the planer, okay? This is a really good planer. It's really effective. It works very well. It leaves a very clean surface. One of the things about the planer, and it's the same way as the drum sander and a couple other machines, is this. If I have a really skinny board, something that's only about this wide, okay, and it's pine, say a really soft material, I can take more than 100 off on a pass, okay? I can take a 1/4 inch probably off on a pass if I want to. But if you've got a wider board, okay, and let's say it's harder, like maple or something, you may not be able to take even 100 off at a time. You may have to take less off. In other words, the more board you have exposed to the knives as it's feeding through, the more careful you have to be about how much material you're taking off. The smaller the board, you can probably take a little bit more off with each pass, okay? It's just one of those oddball things. Think about it, it works pretty good, okay? So what we have now, this is our jointed surface. This is our planed surface, okay? We're gonna go to the drum center next, but before we go there, I'm gonna write down that number, 760, right on the face of this board, the face that was planed, I'm not going to worry about the jointed face. I'm concerned about the plain face. So I wrote down that number, the last number we made a cut through the planer. Okay, that'll come in handy here in a second. So let's go over to the drum sander. I think this is kind of cool that you can move this around now. I'm really happy about it. Nobody thinks that's awesome? Nobody thinks I'm the man for figuring it out? Come on, give me a break. All right, so let's discuss the drum sander. Up, up, up. Okay, all right, so what you're looking at are the two belts in the drum sander, okay? This is a dual head drum sander, right? The first belt, the one the board's going to encounter first as it's fed into it, is 100 grit paper. The rear belt, which is the last belt the surface of the board is going to be in contact with as it exits, is 180 grit. So once you pass a board through this machine, it's been sanded to 180 grit, which is really nice. Okay. Our old machine had a single belt. We used to keep 80 grit in it. All right. Now, before you can run this machine, okay, over here, let's see if you can see it. Try and get up there. Yeah, I want to go up. Yeah, I'm going to zoom in a little bit. There's an air line back here. I went the wrong way again. Okay. In order for these belts to be cinched up or tightened or held tight on the rollers, that air has to be turned on. It won't do anything. You can't enter anything on the keypad, anything like that, until this air is turned on. And it is on. There's two things that are going to tell you when it's on. Number one, this lever is going to be in line with the hose, and you're going to hear the air circulating inside the machine. Okay, so it won't. If for some reason you walk up to this machine and you start trying to enter stuff on the keypad and it won't do anything, it's because the air is not on. Okay, it will not run without the air on. So what you should be able to see now is these belts have now tensioned. Okay. We've got tension on them now. All right, and you can actually turn the belt tension off to change the belt right here and drop this head down. Same thing on this one, drops the head down. Okay. There's safety switches or limit switches here and here and at the other side. So if for some reason the belt loses its tracking and it starts to come off, it's supposed to hit that safety switch and stop it. Okay, but it doesn't really work real well, as we've known by seeing belts get threaded. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and close this. All right. So the other thing about this machine is just like the planer in that we have to have dust collection on. Okay, this will actually stop working if too much dust builds up inside it, because there happens to be a infrared eye in there that reads across the end of the belts, and if it gets covered with sawdust, it'll shut the machine down. Long story, but it will. So same thing as on the planer. This has to be popped out. Just rotate it. Has to be popped out in order for this machine to work, or before it won't take any commands. Okay. So this is why I wrote down that number on the board, okay, 0.760. What I'm going to do to be safe and make sure I'm not going to damage these belts, okay, they're about 120 bucks a piece, okay, I'm going to set it at 0.780. I'm going to add 10 thousandths to it. Now on this one, even though it's the same brand of machine and everything, on the planer you have to enter the decimal like 0.780 or 770. This one there's no decimal, so you just have to enter 3 numbers. So I'm going to go 770. I'm 10 thousandths over what it was when I left the planer, okay? And then just hit this green button, and the bed's going to go up and down. Now, it may jockey back and forth a couple times to hit it, but it went ahead and got it, okay? Now, this is the feed roller, little, I guess you call it an icon these days. This is the belts. Now, when you turn the belts on, it takes a minute for it to get up to speed. That light will turn green when it's ready. There's our seat belt, okay? So we're going to go planed side up, joiner side down. Now you can hear it be able to see it on this amperage gauge if it's making contact. I'm going to mark up this space. So it did not make contact that time, okay? Let me back this up a little bit so you can see it. So it did not make contact, so that's really what I want. On the first pass I make in the drum center, I prefer it doesn't touch it. I prefer we're a little too high, okay? Now I can go down to 10 thousandths. According to the test, it's 15 thousandths, but honestly, I don't want to sit here and subtract 15 from these numbers. So I'm just going to go 760, and I'm going to listen to the machine, and I'm going to watch this amperage gauge when I feed it. And I'm also going to vary where I send this board in. I still get the carry thing. I usually change to the amperage gauge. We go 750. Green button. What this tells you is how much current it's drawing when a board's going through it. The harder this machine has to work, the higher this number is going to be. They say that at 30 amps, you're okay. If you go anything over 30 amps, we're kind of in trouble. We're taking too much off. So I'm 750. I'm going to go over here. I can hear it just barely touch it. Not even really enough to change that, but I heard it touch before. So 740. 10,004. One other thing I like to do is the board heading that way last time. Every time I come here, I'm going to turn it and send the opposite end gauge first. I can just hear it touching. And I can see it starting to remove the pencil marks on here, okay? 730. We'll watch this now. It's probably going to get pretty good. There we go. Now it's jumping up to 21, 22. I don't have the dust collector on, so. I'm going to shut it off right here. Okay. So a couple things about our drum cannon. So we started those cuts at 770, 770 thousandths of an inch, just a little over a quarter inch. Okay. The board, when it left the planer, was at 760. So what I usually try to do is, thank you by the way, I usually try to leave the planer with about 50 thousandths of an inch to go to my final thickness. So in other words, if I want a board to be 3/4 of an inch thick when it's done, okay, I'm going to take it to 0.800 on the planer, okay? 0.750 is 3/4 of an inch. So if I take it to 800 thousandths, that means I have 50 thousandths left to go to get it down to final thickness, okay? What that means is I've got, taking 10 thousandths off at a time, I've got 5 passes is all I have to make through the drum center, and it should be all I need. All we're trying to do is, 1, remove any planer marks from the face of the board. I'm not worried about the jointed side. The jointed side's nice. We don't have to worry about it, okay? And I'm trying to get it down to final thickness. So if I start at 0.800, then I've got 5 times I send it through at 10 thousandths a time. 790, 780, 770, 760, and then 750. That gives me plenty. I'm not sitting here for 3 days feeding the board through 50 times to get it down to thickness, okay? And it just comes with practice, okay? It's not one of those things you're going to get right away, okay? It does take a little bit of practice, okay? So let me turn the air off on this thing. All right. So let me see here. I'm going to take a look at this safety test again and try and figure out, most likely, most likely, the question on the quiz on Wednesday will be something like, I'm not going to do that. That would be mean. Something like, which machine will be the best choice to quickly and efficiently remove large amounts of material from the face of a board? And it would be planer. That's the kind of question you're going to have on the quiz on Friday for the planer drum center. Okay. So, all right. So check this out. This is pretty cool. We're going to head, I think I can take this all the way to the table saw. So the table saw, as you guys know, probably has more questions on the safety test than any other machine in the shop, okay? So just imagine you guys were walking through the shop right now, right? And, you know, you're in school and you're cruising along. I did a shop tour with the beginning class this morning doing this. And it kind of sucked because the first class of the day, the beginning class, they're always pretty much asleep. And not a single comment, not nothing. Really a bummer. So, all right, so look at this, man. This is sweet. There's some pretty tight spaces for this cart, but I'm gonna make it, I think. And we're over here. I don't know, I'm gonna pull these cords so we can get to it. I can get to just about everywhere in the shop with the cords I have, so I'm pretty excited about it. Of course, I get excited pretty easily, so it's just simple things in life, you know? All righty. All righty. Okay, that's all the zoom I have, so. All right, so we're here at the table saw, okay? So let's take a look at some of the questions on the table saw real quick on the safety test. Here's one, number 4. Let me get the safety test up real quick so you guys can see it. I'm getting older and it's like I want to sit every chance I get, you know. It's one of those things, so I had to get my stool. So let's pull up the safety test real quick and take a look at it. Yay, that sounds like fun, right? All right, so we're gonna go to the front, beginning, okay. So as was the case with the planer and drum center, there are some questions on here that somewhat relate to the machine, but they're not a direct relation to it, such as this very first one again. It's your responsibility to make sure each machine is adjusted properly before you use it. It's kind of a generic question that applies to any machine in the shop, okay? This is a big one for the table saw simply because if there's a metal staple or some kind of metal object embedded in the wood, it's going to trip the saw stop device, the safety device, okay? This is a big one. This table saw has fired, it's tripped twice or 3 times, and the very first time it tripped, it was because a student, there was a little piece of scrap material sitting to the left of the blade, and a student went to flick it out of the way with his finger, and the machine was running down. He'd shut it off, but the blade hadn't stopped running yet, and the tip of his finger touched the side of the blade and tripped it. So it was a $150 mistake just because they were in too much of a hurry to wait for the machine to stop to get the scrap out of there. I've noticed, for those of you guys that had the class last quarter, and we watched that Japanese guy in his shop quite a few times, that square rule furniture guy, I've noticed that the table saw that he has, it has this big sliding table on it. When he shuts his table saw off, that blade stops instantly. That would be nice. This thing takes a little while to run down. So, okay. So number 4 is false. You should not remove scrap material while machine's running. Number 6 is the next one. When cross-cutting on the table saw, you should use the rip fence, okay? Let's take a look at this, okay? I want you guys, I know it's been so, by the time you guys get back in here, man, we will have been gone for a year, okay? And that's just crazy. I'm going to assume, and I think it's a pretty safe assumption, that you guys will forget a lot of stuff. And sometimes it's the most basic of things, and that scares me, okay? So that you can see it, two main types of cuts on a board, okay, are a rip cut. Okay, that's in that direction. That's what we do on the table saw using the rip fence, right? Long edge against the fence. Okay, this is a cross cut. Okay, we cannot put the short end against the fence. All right, we generally do most of our cross cuts at the miter saw. Okay, but we can do it here using miter gauge. All right, all we've done is place an auxiliary fence perpendicular to the rip fence, which allows us now to put the long edge against the fence and make a cross cut here. Okay, so the question on the test was, when cross-cutting on the table saw, you should use the rip fence. That is false, okay? Absolutely false. The next one, so that's false, number 6. Number 8, the table saw is the best choice when cutting to length. That is false. That's a cross-cut, and we tend to do 90 to 95% of our cross-cuts on the miter saw. Now, we do have a cross-cut sled that we sometimes use on the table saw, which allows us to cross-cut boards a little wider than we could do with just the miter gauge, right? This allows us to place another fence that's perpendicular to the rip fence and place it this way. Now we can cut a board that's about this wide, right? You can't do that with the miter gauge. It falls off the edge of the table and it's a real pain in the behind. This allows us to cut a little wider board, cross-cut a little wider board. The beginning kids use this mostly for trimming their tops to size, okay? That's kind of one of the main uses we have this for. But there's a few other uses as well. It's not a lot, okay? We have the same thing for if you are doing really, really delicate miters and you've got to be right on. For example, those trim pieces on the drawers of that tambour cabinet are a good example. Okay, this allows us to do really accurate miter work, this miter sled here, okay, 45-degree angle. This is more accurate than the miter saw. When you really need true accuracy on a miter cut, that's what you want to use, okay? Or if you're cutting really small pieces as well, that allows us to do that. All right. All right, yay. Okay. Number 8 is false. Number 9, the miter gauge should be used when making rip cuts on the table saw. No, we use the rip fence, okay? We want to use the rip fence, all right? True or false, you may move a guard or safety device out of the way when running machines. We have a very specific guard on this machine, okay? And for you guys, that's this little cat right here. It's called the riving knife, okay? That riving knife. Let's go over to the side a little bit and take a look. See if I can get there without running over anything. Let's take a look here. That riving knife, okay, that is what is going to keep your material from kicking back, okay? I'm gonna zoom in on that a little bit. I can go faster than that. And go, hey, I went the right way that time. That's this cat right here, okay? This is a critical piece of safety right here, this riving knife, okay? Now, when you're in the beginning, you use this overhead guard, okay? You do not have to use this in intermediate or advanced, okay? But this is the same as this other riving knife. It's just a little larger. It's got some little anti-kickback pawls, spring-loaded pawls here. It's help with kickback as well. But you will always, well, I shouldn't say always. As you guys know, there are exceptions to every rule, okay? 99.99% of the time, you will use this machine with this riving knife in place, okay? There are situations where we have to remove it. And one situation is one I used when I mounted this camera to the cart. I had to cut a little slot, but it didn't want to go all the way through. And it was just a small slot. It wasn't worth doing it on the dado saw. So if you're not cutting all the way through a board, you can't have that riving knife in place. It'll stop the board when you hit it. So I had to pull this out. But I was using the miter gauge at the time. Okay, I was using the miter gauge at the time. Rip fence was way out of the way. So when this piece finally, there's nothing that's going to cause this to kick back. I'm holding it nice and tight against this fence. Now, what the riving knife does, let me show you what it does, if I can. I'm not going to try and create a kickback situation. That's just foolish. Okay. Let me grab a board here. Here's a good one. Okay. So if I'm ripping, which is the main purpose of this machine, to rip lumber to final accurate width. Okay. So when I set up here, let me see what you guys can see. I'm going to zoom it out just a little bit. When I come over to the table saw, I've got three things that are done. All right. I've got one face that's jointed. I've got one face that's plain, flat, and parallel to the jointed face. I've got a consistent thickness, and it's my final thickness. And I've got one edge jointed. Okay. When I set my boards here prior to ripping, I always set them so the jointed surface is to the right. So all I have to do is pick it up and put that jointed against the fence. Okay, as opposed to going, oh, I can't remember which edge I jointed, blah, 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 I don't know. Now, what I want you guys to start doing is before you ever start milling a board, before you ever go to the joint or joint a face, I want you to put pencil marks on every single surface, both faces, both edges, and both ends. So that by the time you come over here, you don't have any marks on this surface that's been jointed. You don't have any pencil marks on this surface that's been planed and drum sanded. And you don't have any marks on this surface because it's been jointed. So it's really easy. You'll know, okay? So I set it there. I bring it over. I've set my fence, okay? I'm standing to the left of the blade. I don't want to stand in the path of the board that kicks back from between the blade and the fence. I'm less than 4 inches to the blade. Okay, right now I'm about 1.5 inches from the fence to the right side of the blade. That means I have to use a push stick. Okay, got everything ready to go. All right, I can set my board here, or I can set my board over here. Usually I set them over here if I have multiple pieces that are getting ripped, or you can set it there. Remember, hands off the board when you start the machine. Okay. My left hand has a specific job. It's to keep it tight against the fence. My right hand is just going to feed it into the blade. Okay, but I got to remember at all times that my left hand cannot go past the front of the blade, and I'll show you why. All right, I'm going to stop it. All right, so the reason my left hand can't go past the front of the blade, because right about here, if my left hand's here and I'm pushing, what I'm doing is pinching the blade in that curve. I'm pushing on it. I'm trying to close that curve. I'm going to pinch the blade with it. It's going to pick it up and throw it up. Okay, so my left hand does not go past the front of the blade. All right. The reason that riving knife is so important, I don't know how many of you have ever done this or seen it happen, but usually when you're cutting pine like this, sometimes when you cut, what you're doing when you make a cut like that is you're relieving some stresses that are in that board. In other words, you start cutting on it, that board all of a sudden goes, oh, thank God, man, that stress is killing me. I'm going to relax, and it will start to tweak out. It will bend out or in. If you've ever been cutting a pine board and all of a sudden you got about here and it got really hard to push, that's because that kerf, those stresses you're relieving, that kerf just goes, oh, thank goodness, and it closes and it pinches this riving knife and it stops the board. Okay, that's another thing. If it's doing that, this riving knife is keeping it from closing and pinching the blade and flying up. This riving knife is an 1/8 of an inch thick, just like this blade is an 1/8 of an inch thick. Okay, so it's keeping that from happening. The other thing it's doing, okay, is if I'm going to take off a little bit, take off a little bit. So I make a cut. If I don't have that riving knife in place, if I don't have it in place, here's how front of this blade is moving down into the machine. The back of the blade is coming up out of the machine. Okay. So when you're doing this, if all of a sudden you get about here and the leading edge of the board starts to move away from the fence, let me see. I'm going to put this where you guys can see it. I hope. So if this leading edge, as you're feeding it into the blade, starts to move away from the fence, what's happening? Look at this back corner, okay? That blade is moving up out of the table. It's going to pick this board up, right? And it's going to fling it off the back of the machine. That's how a kickback happens. That's what the riving knife, one of the main purposes of the riving knife is meant to stop. It keeps your board from angling away from the fence and contacting that rear tooth that's coming up out of the table. Instead, it's contacting the riving knife. It's supposed to help stop a kickback. So that's why we have that. Okay? All right. So, there's a lot to the table saw. And I'm guessing that some of you, not always, some of you, when you finally do come back, you're going to be a little hesitant on some of these machines. So this is one of them that you'll probably go, I haven't run this in a while, man. But we'll get there. Okay, we'll get there. Let me see if there's something else here. That was you may move a guard or safety device out of the wheel running machines. That's false. When ripping on the table saw, if the fence is set to within 4 inches or closer to the blade, you must use a push stick. Okay. Number 19, your board must be at least 12 inches long in order for you to safely rip its width on the table saw. Okay. 3 things that must be checked prior to using the table saw: board at least 12 inches long, blade 1/4 inch above your material, nobody standing behind you, safety glasses on, fence set and locked, guard in place, no foreign objects in material, dust collection turned on. There's a ton, okay? Blade 90 degrees to table, there's a whole lot, okay? Number 30, what machine is the best choice to accurately rip a board to width? Table saw. Let's see here. Always place the long edge of your material against the fence when ripping to width on the table saw. I should probably change that to long jointed edge. Okay, I probably should. I'll get right on that. And that's it. Okay, that's all the table saw questions on here. Okay, we'll go over it in a little more detail tomorrow, and make sure you guys are okay with it. But this is kind of next week. I hope you guys understand. Next week I'm going to be gone. It's probably going to be just videos all week. I'm going to try and pre-record 1 or 2 videos on machines out here in the shop and have the sub play those at some point. But I think for the most part, it's just going to kind of be woodworking videos, you know. And I will tell you guys right now, if you guys want to, and you want to take a moment and some time and go on YouTube and see if you can find some woodworking videos that you would like to see, please let me know, okay? I get a little bored with trying to find ones myself that you guys might like. If I had a better idea of the videos that capture your interest and you enjoy watching, that makes it more worthwhile, okay? So, yeah, if you find some that you'd like to see, please let me know, man. We'll take a look at them and watch them, all right? But it's got to be related to woodworking. You know, I mean, Enrique, we're not going to watch Frozen. You know, Caleb, we're not going to watch. Well, we might watch Cars. That's not a bad movie. You know, I mean, Logan, we're not going to watch Lion King. You know, but we can watch some. I don't know why I'm picking on you guys because those are the names I saw on the window. I thought that's a good movie. I went to Disneyland last year and rode that last fall and rode that Cars ride in the California land. It was awesome. That was like my favorite ride of the whole place. So, okay. So remember, tomorrow, if you would please, how do I get out of this? I want you guys to go to conferences, okay? It's going to be a big blue button thing. I've never used it before, so maybe a little bit odd, but we're going to go to conferences and use that, okay? The only difficulty with that is anything that happens next week won't be recorded. It's only recorded, it's only kept for 14 days, so there's no point in posting it in the modules. So anyway, there you go. So go to conferences tomorrow, okay? There's an announcement about it. So if you check your announcements before you come to class in the morning, it should be there, okay? And I will open this up before about 10 minutes before class, all right? So it's Monday. We only have 2 more days this week. Thank goodness. You guys take care of yourselves. I wish you were here. I miss all of you. It sucks. But have a good Monday evening, and I look forward to seeing you guys tomorrow, okay? Bye, folks. I've never seen Frozen, so I don't know.
You haven't?
No, I've never seen it. I've never seen The Lion King either.
What?
No, I haven't.
You're uncultured, Mr. Brandon.
I guess so, man. I must be from Grants Pass or something. I probably came from White City. That would explain it.
Well, what are we talking about?
Yeah, I've never seen Frozen or The Lion King. I've seen Cars.
I've seen The Lion King. I haven't watched Frozen.
I've never seen The Lion King. Supposedly it's really good.
It is. That was my childhood.
I mean, yeah, a lot of you guys saw it when you were kids, you know.
Yeah.
They didn't have a lot of, I think, they didn't have a lot of cartoons like that. Disney didn't when I was a kid. But, yeah,
But
whatever.
wasn't like Disney like a big thing when you were younger?
It came on every Sunday night. They had an hour show every Sunday night. But they did a lot of different things. You know, it wasn't like, I think they had stuff like the original, what's the guy, the ape man that was raised by apes? Crap.
Tarzan?
What?
Tarzan?
Yeah, I think Tarzan was one of them, or Mowgli, that Mowgli movie with Mowgli in it. When I was a kid, gosh, I can't remember that far back, man. That was a long time ago. Long time ago. So, yeah, I don't know. Maybe I'll watch some cartoons over Christmas break. And
That'd be a good idea. Get a little bit more cultured.
And I can discuss them with my students and see what's going on. All right, guys. You guys have a good day, okay? Take care of yourselves, man.
See you, Brian.
All right. See you, Brandon.